Hey everyone, Joe Vannicola here. Aside from needing a haircut and a gig, I'm home like the rest of us, being responsible and trying to keep each other safe. So what do I do? I figured I would read a chapter from my memoir, All We Knew But Couldn't Say. Seems to be what we do as artists. We share bits of our lives and our work, and I figured I would read one of my chapters. So here we go. It's from chapter 2, Childhood. Children in costumes and leotards were scattered inside and outside of the studio in a rundown area of Montreal. Dozens of shiny steel-toed shoes were reflected in the large mirrored wall. I learned to shuffle and triple time step here in Miss Christie's class. I fell in love with both her and the ability to make music with my feet. I was excited about dance, movement, about being alive. Miss Christie planted a tiny seed, and music filled a space inside that I hadn't really known existed until I met her and learned to tap. It was mixed up with love, drums, swing, jazz, blues, rock and roll, time steps, metronomes, and Miss Christie hugs. My mother also signed me up for drama lessons at a local children's theater. I loved that more than anything. The land of make-believe was a perfect universe for a child like me. And it was the same for my mother, who had a certain twinkle in her eye when I was on stage or when music played or when leather shoes pointed, tapped, or drummed. Mother's escape was the same as mine, only she experienced it vicariously through me and my sister Lou. If she could have worn the tap shoes, she would have, but she could only be an observer. She knew the moves, pirouette, flat, buffalo, and time steps. My mother knew the language of dance. That was our shared love, our point of connection. Everything else was chaos. "Let's hurry and get going, girls," Mother said, swinging her arms at us to get into the car. She wore one of her floral dresses that covered her rolls of fat and smelled like Chanel perfume and talcum powder mixed with sweat. Her long dark hair was made shorter by her accordion perm, but in the shuffle as we carried our belongings to the car, it became stringy and wet. Sadie, my eldest sister, was 14, and like 12-year-old Diego, she was at school. Lou was 10, and we were kept home to help pack the car. Sadie had big green eyes and a cackle of a laugh. Diego had a Mick Jagger pout. Lou had chipped front teeth and freckles, and I was skinny and quick, always watching over my shoulder, on the lookout for larger, older people, especially my father. He could make a child believe the devil was real. We were escaping our father, dismantling our home while he was at work, taking only essentials and keepsakes. I was 4 years old the day we left him. We raced around carrying our prized possessions and jamming the car with pots, pans, bedding, clothes, food, pharmaceuticals, photograph albums, tap and jazz shoes, anything we could cram into that one load. My mother fumbled to get the key in the ignition. We held our breath until she managed to pull away from the curb. I looked down, back out the window to say goodbye to all I'd ever known, but it was too late. We'd already turned the corner. No time for goodbyes. "He won't be back, I promise," my mother said with determination, sweat pouring down her face as she drove. Lou didn't speak, just stared at my mother with a type of hopeful uncertainty. A girl who demanded the truth, a big-mouthed older sister who wasn't keen on smiling, who had little to smile about. What we all felt that morning was panic mixed with excitement over escape. In my 4 years of life, I had learned to survive despite a constant level of fear. We left a street lined with yards and trees where children played on the merry-go-round and baseball diamond in the park across from our house, and entered a block with no grass, just rows of tiny houses and street lights, a working-class area. Houses were small, attached. Everything looked the same all the way up the block, rows and rows of tiny spaces filled with people living inside a gray world. We didn't say anything when Mother told us that our father wouldn't be back. I remember counting in my own head, counting the stoplights, green light, red lights, and holding on to Lou for dear life in the car, in a panic that we would be found, that somehow he could see and know where we were, and if he found us, there would be hell to pay. We came to know our new neighbors and found places to play, found parks and abandoned houses to explore, to get lost in that spring. I turned 5 years old in July, and our new friends gathered for the first birthday party I would remember. "Happy birthday!" the room erupted after a vanilla frosted cake was placed before me at the kitchen table. "Make a wish, Joanne," Mother said. A little boy named Bobby stuck his finger in to scoop up some of the icing before his mother swatted his arm away. There were mothers and children from the gray buildings piled into our apartment. Women wearing polyester paisley dresses with fake jewels, beehives, and buns, and children with shorts and sneakers and food-covered faces. "Cake, cake, cake," the other children chanted. Lou put Glenn Miller on the record player, and the mothers erupted when they heard "Chattanooga Choo-Choo," singing along to it and pouring wine into plastic cups while we ate seconds of cake. I wondered if we had become like the Partridge Family, all giddy and sweet like their theme song, "Come on, get happy." We played openly and made noise at the dinner table and ran around if we felt like it. Diego was usually out getting into no good with the other boys on the block. He always seemed absent. Even though he lived with us, he felt separate. Perhaps it was because he was so much older than I, but in truth, I think it was because he was a boy. A boy in a Catholic Italian family had a much longer leash. We girls spent a lot of time together. We constantly dared our mother to see if she would punish us for being naughty. My Crayolas found their way onto the white mat of a painting on the wall. Sweets were brought to the dining table before we finished the food on our plates, and Sadie cursed outright and smelled like tobacco. I screamed at the top of my lungs as a new exercise, goaded and pushed to see if Mother would crack and smack me. She tried once, but I ran around and jumped over furniture, and she gave up. Mostly she didn't know what to do, just stared with a strange numbness when she couldn't make us stop, and no amount of yelling would do. Without our father, our muscles relaxed, and we weren't on constant alert anymore, no longer hardwired to scan for danger. It had taken weeks for my body to learn this new feeling, and I wasn't sure if I should trust it. "Joanne, come on, it's your move," Lou called from upstairs. The skim milk powder man had arrived to show our mother how to make milk from a package. He stood in our kitchen mixing water and powdered milk in a bowl, trying to get her to buy it. "Cheaper than milk and will last a whole lot longer, just pennies a packet," he explained as he pushed his crinkled shirt into his pants over and over again. He shifted back and forth from one foot to the other, while Mother leaned against the counter and nodded her head up and down delicately, though she was hardly delicate, trying to seem interested while he droned on about powdered food. She'd been struggling to feed us. When we first moved in, it was chaotic and messy, almost daring, like the universe was daring us to see if we could survive in this unkempt and sparsely furnished house without a father, without money. I liked it. I ran upstairs to Lou and Sadie in the bedroom we shared. There were only 3 rooms, one for Diego, one for our mother, and one for us. Sadie was reading a magazine with David Cassidy's face on the front. She flipped through the pages, ignoring Lou and me. Lou sat on the floor in front of one of my birthday gifts, the game Operation, with her bag of barbecue chips ripped open and the radio playing. The window was covered with half a sheet tacked up, and our unmade mattresses were on the floor. I dropped down on my bed, grabbed the tweezers attached to the red wire, and tried to get the toe jam out of the foot. "Lou, can milk be the same as it when it comes out of a cow if it comes from a packet?" The game's buzzer went off. Lou and I jumped while Sadie muttered, "Jesus Christ," and then went back to reading. Lou snatched the tweezers from me. "I don't know. I suppose if it tastes okay, then it might be the same as real milk." "So how come we didn't have powdered before?" I asked. "Who cares? We had ding-dong before," Lou said. "What's a ding-dong?" "Dad!" All 3 of us burst into fits of laughter, and chips fell to the floor. Lou got up to turn up the volume on the radio, where Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was playing. We both stood up and waved our arms around in the air like branches to the melancholic sounds. I did my best to imitate her. I could still hear the whir of the machine in the basement, or downstairs, I should say, where the grown-ups were making milk. "Are we going to have to eat food out of a packet?" I asked Lou, tugging on her shirt as she sang. Lou! What? Why do you always got to ask stupid questions?" Lou closed her eyes, trying to catch up with the lyrics. I sat down and stared at her waving around like a squid, then laughed. "What you laughing about?" Lou asked. "Ding dong," I said, and all 3 of us fell into hysterics. "Girls," Mother hollered from downstairs, but we ignored her. "Turn down the music and come downstairs. Do you hear me?" Mother shouted. "I want you to try the milk." Just before Lou and I reached the bottom step, we heard the banging on the front door. "Bang, bang, bang! Open the door!" shouted the voice on the other side. I knew who it was. We all did. We froze. I stood beside Lou. The skim milk powder man stayed in the kitchen, and Mother walked over to open the door. She didn't look at us, but just hesitated for a moment, her hand hovering above the doorknob. Lou squeezed my hand. My breath stuck in my chest. I heard the click of the unlocking of the door. He stood in the rain with the thunder crashing around him, wearing his dirty work clothes, hard hat, and Kodiak boots after a day of constructing new houses for people to live in. Ours instantly fell apart. Lou ran upstairs and I followed as Dad screamed at the skim powder man to get out of the house. Sadie wasn't reading anymore. She was facing the wall under a blanket with her back toward us, as if she were asleep. Lou and I instinctively cleaned, putting the game pieces away, the chips. There was yelling and smashing, and Dad was throwing things and calling Mother a bitch, and Mother shouted, "Stop! Stop it! Stop!" Until all that was left was the sound of the rain on the roof, the drums of thunder, and the wild flashes of light across the windows. I stood in front of our closed door and listened. Sadie kept her face to the wall. Lou took my hand and gently guided me toward the bed while humming a tune. I wiped my nose and eyes on my sleeve and took a deep breath. The trembling returned in my chest. Lou grabbed a bag of elastics from the dresser drawer and started to braid my hair. Not one or two, but as many tiny little braids as she could twist onto my head. We sat for hours like monkeys in a tree, grooming hair, comforting, and resting in each other's arms while the moon rose and the room went dark. That's almost a full chapter. Okay, so it's not the most uplifting material from my book, but it's a slice of my life, and I'm sharing it. And, it just was a piece of animated moments from back in the day. Not the traumatizing ones, because, there's more to that. But, there's me. There's my book, All We Knew But Couldn't Say. And if you want to hear more, I think I'm actually recording a Kobo audiobook contract one of these days. We'll see what happens. I mean, there's other things to worry about, like not getting COVID-19 and staying home and staying safe and making sure everybody's well and that our neighbors are well. So I'm wishing you love, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, and share a video or come and say hi or any of that. Okay, lots of love. Bye.